now formed what's called the Cannabis Lobby, right? You want to tell us a little bit about that? What's going on?
Yeah, sure. So this is very new, and we're in kind of this think tank process, but we started as the North Carolina Cannabis Lobby. We've got 2 medical cannabis bills on the table. We've got House Bill 1143 and House Bill 401. They're pretty basic bills, and we started out as just a grassroots group working on amendments for this bill. So it will protect farmers, it'll protect patients and North Carolina residents. We feel like if we do have a medical cannabis program, the last thing we need is West Coast money coming over and literally putting all of North Carolina farmers out. So we started working on that. But then the DEA, the FDA started these new rulings on hemp extract, as well as regulations on farmers that really are going to just squash the small farmer. So we've kind of pivoted right now on working as a lobby group that's grassroots effort by local activist farmers, extractors, to really just organize, push back. People power is where it's at, but we also need political power, and that's where the lobby comes in.
Absolutely.
And the MORES Act, that's really important. And
you'll talk a little bit about. So we have the MORE Act. It's one of the federal pieces of legislation going on right now. We're going to go into what it is.
Absolutely. This one not only decriminalizes and deschedules cannabis, but it also works to expunge people's records. There's resentencing programs, and it seals people's records as well as a 5% tax that funnels back into the communities most impacted by the war on drugs in the form of grant programs, social programs. It's great.
The social equity component of this bill is fantastic, and it would deschedule. So I've talked to a lot of people that are a little afraid of the MORES Act because they're afraid that they're going to schedule cannabis as a Schedule 2 as opposed to a Schedule 1, which would make it where the FDA had to approve anything that came through. But this would actually completely deschedule cannabis, so we wouldn't have all these regulations banking that's affecting not just cannabis but hemp as well.
Absolutely. It's something I think pretty unique to this industry. We started off having to operate in the gray area, and it seems that it only gets more so gray at times. But it's unique that not only are we fighting to be here, we literally fight for our existence every day. And a stroke of a pen and a slight change of law can literally wipe out our businesses. So I think it's important to understand exactly what's in this and what's going on, because it's not important just to legalize or deschedule or reschedule or whatever, but we have to do it the right way. There are a lot of people that suffered because of these terrible laws, and we got to make sure that they're compensated and taken care of, and like they said, have a fair chance to get into the industry. So with all that being said, do you want to elaborate a little bit on the latest hemp-related DEA issue and how it affects you guys as a whole company, extraction company?
Sure. So really, the current ruling by the DEA is basically saying that anything over 0.3% is going to be, of Delta-9, is going to be marijuana. Cannabis. I don't like to say that word.
Yeah.
Marijuana.
It is impossible as processors to have anything come out of our process that's not hot. It's just part of it.
Because it is concentrated. On the 2018 Farm Bill, it was very vague on this process because this isn't the final product. This isn't going to the consumer. This is just in our hands or in other processors' hands. So to make it where extract is now a criminalized penalty, it makes it where little extractors like us, we have to be concerned of maybe getting arrested. That is ludicrous, and it's so important that we fight this together because this will affect the industry, not just the extractors, just the industry as a whole.
Sure, and it's as we know, I think they just reopened for public comment. So throughout our post with Let's Be Blunt and everyone else's pages will show you and offer through these videos, make sure to go out and give your comment and your opinion, and make sure it's an educated one. And come with class, come with knowledge, and don't stoop to their level and make it ugly. Come with knowledge, come with class, and really educate people. And that's what we're trying to do here, is explain to you what exactly these laws mean. A lot of people don't understand this language, and we're just going to learn what it means ultimately. So
by October 20th.
By October 20th, yes, a very short time from now. So there's a scheduled final ruling possibly then, if we make it that deadline, but who knows.
So I think right now, all of us in the hemp industry are kind of riding this anxiety wave, but you're not in the hemp industry unless you are ready for the anxiety wave. These laws, regulations, they're ever changing, and it is so hard to invest your money and really make a bet that our legislators, that our representatives are going to do just that in Congress on a local level, and they haven't been. As far as the industry goes, small farmers, small processors, we have to link together. We have to make this such a union because we aren't each other's competition. Out of state is out of, the federal government is really going to be our competition here. The rules and regulations, we have a voice in this. It's just a matter of being a unified voice. And I think the industry can progress, but it's not going to do it on its own because there is so much money that is fighting against this. You know, there's so many lobbies, pharmaceutical, tobacco, alcohol, that doesn't want this because they see this is what the people want. But I do feel like if we can unify on state levels, on region levels, that we can continue to progress this industry and do it the correct way. And I have hope, you know, but I live on hope. So you have to in the hemp industry, but I do feel like we can progress, but we're ready to be talking about cannabis, and it blows our minds that we're still so stuck in this hemp realm when it comes to regulations. But I feel like together we can continue to push this industry in the right way.
I absolutely agree that it's all of us together. And especially for Black and people of color, you know, I'm not going to leave this fight until there is expungement, until people are released from jail, until grants are given back to those people who have been most affected by the war on drugs. You know, as a first generation immigrant, I feel so lucky for the opportunity to be in this industry for a plant that I believe in, and I think everybody else should as well, especially since Black and brown people have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. So it's all of us together, and we're going to continue fighting for that, because who else will? Come join us.
I love it. Yeah, and touch on that. A lot of times, make sure I remind that, a lot of times in this industry, it seems like we kind of got access to hemp, and everyone works so hard together to get that access. But once we obtained it, every person for themselves. And, you know, when they first started coming for the smokable hemp flower, we had so much participation and so many people offering to help. But when the imminent threat went away, so did the support. A lot of people, I think, get complacent and know that their plug or their provider of their cannabis is good to go. But people don't realize, even in the legal aspect of this, how many risks are taken and how many gray areas we fight through every day. And it brings us to, it's a gray area for law enforcement in a lot of ways. And she was talking earlier about the lobbies. Law enforcement lobby was one of the biggest ones we fought in this state. And it was almost intimidating. They would show up in uniform in large numbers and, you know, kind of keep spewing the same rhetoric over and over. But it really, at that point, really solidified for me, realizing how much of an industry this is for them too. And there's a massive amount of money in search and seizure. So ultimately, we got to realize that law enforcement and policemen, that's a business too. They have quotas to meet. They have to generate revenue and income as well. And it's literally a conflict of interest, because it's a hunt. It's and it's something that everyone possesses. One of their biggest arguments of why we should keep it illegal is every violent scene they go on, every violent crime, cannabis is there. And of course it is, because everybody smokes. So I'm sure there was tennis shoes and t-shirts and all kind of things they didn't account for. But that's one of their biggest arguments. So, but ultimately, even in this hemp business, and we'll talk later today with Blake Butler with the North Carolina Industrial Hemp Association, and talk about some of the struggles he's experienced on that level, but that's ultimately where I met you. So even from that, we're still uncertain about smokable hemp flower.
I feel like a lot of the sheriffs that came out and spoke, they kind of had the same rhetoric of, we're following the laws that you guys have put in place for us. And that's why, you know, the topic of cannabis is so important here, because they're following the laws that we have in place. And that really came down to smell and seizure, and them saying, well, we can't differentiate on the smell, so there's no way for probable cause, which is where they get a ton of their money, is by, you know, taking your vehicle, your home, and all of these different things. And we have to do that differently in North North Carolina. But that being kind of the sole way that they're bringing in money is very disturbing, and it shouldn't be based on cannabis, period.
And she touched on something. You hear a lot of times cops saying all they do is enforce the law. They're law enforcement. Well, I think that line has been crossed many times throughout the country, but very much so in North Carolina. If they're there just to follow laws, I don't understand why they were fighting so much to keep the law in place. So, ultimately they came up with everything from what their dogs would be put out of business, and they're no longer helpful, and
Doggos out of work.
Yeah, we can't find murderers anymore because of it, all kind of things. But ultimately, they don't want to give up almost $1 trillion a year business. And in North Carolina, people don't realize if law enforcement thinks you're committing a crime, they can search and seize your property without actually being charged and without being convicted.
Yep.
So that's a huge problem in itself. So, please get involved ultimately. So there's a lot of us in this industry that are fighting to keep this alive, and it's helping so many people. And if we lose this battle at any point, we're regressing 50, 60 years. So it's that much important to keep going forward. But anyway.
You made a really good point as far as we had so much unity with the smokable hemp ban, and then we all kind of dispersed, and this happens time and time again, but we keep getting faced with these same big deals, and it takes so much to organize these people all back together. So with the cannabis lobby, this is a nice place for activists to be plugged in, already organized. So when stuff like this happens, we've got a whole group of people that are ready to just attack, and it's not calling Jimmy to call Fred to see if we can get a meeting to see who we need to talk to. Like, this is already an organized effort, and I think it's so important for us to stay plugged in so we're ready for this. This isn't stopping, y'all. This is going to be a continuation. It's just the way it works in government, and just being prepared, I think, is so important right now for these rulings that come out.